GNL a cargo del señor Mustapha Zehhaf, capitán de la Marina Mercante. Él es especialista en envíos por mar de GNL de la empresa Independiente de Canadá. Bienvenido, señor Zehhaf. Recibámoslo, por favor, con un fuerte aplauso. Es la última ponencia del día.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank Kena for the invitation. Thank you very much, Kena. I attended this forum last year, but I was attending only this year. I'm speaker. So again, thank you, Kena. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Mustapha Zehhaf. I'm ship's captain. I've been commanding one of the biggest LNG ships in the world for the past 2 years. I've been in the LNG shipping industry for almost 2 decades. And in parallel, I'm sharing my knowledge and news on LinkedIn. I'm doing YouTube videos as well about LNG. I'm sending newsletter weekly about LNG as well. So anything I'm doing is around LNG. So in today's presentation, we'll talk about the LNG as fuel and LNG bunkering. So I'll start with the basics first, and then I will move to regulations and a bit of technical information, and we'll end with a couple of numbers and figures about the LNG bunkering around the world. So in our agenda today, as I said, we start with history, definition. We'll talk about the concerns about the emission from ships, how LNG is complying with these regulations, and we'll describe briefly the LNG bunkering modes, and at the end, we'll see a couple of numbers about the LNG bunkering flow in the world. So as I said, I will start with basic information. So what does it mean, bunkering, and from where the bunkering term came? In the past, the ships were fueled by coal. So coal was stored in containers called bunkers. So transferring this coal to these containers, the operation was called bunkering. Fast forward, the coal was replaced by fuel oil, marine gas oil, and we still are using the fuel oil bunkering. And now we have the LNG bunkering. So the LNG bunker tanks are installed either outside the ship's hull in cylindrical tanks. As you can see here, we have this bulk carrier. She has energy tanks outside or internal tanks, such as for the container ships. You can see clearly in this chart that the LNG bunkering volume is growing over the years. In January 2023, the LNG volume bunkered was only around 160,000 cubic meter. Fast forward 2.5 years later, in August 2025, 800,000 cubic meter of LNG was bunkered. It's 5 times the volume of LNG in a period of 2.5 years only. And this is without counting the LNG used as fuel by LNG ships. So as you know, the LNG ships, they are using their cargo as fuel as well. So we have the boil of gas, daily between 0.15 to 0.07% of the total capacity of the ship is burned in the ship's engine. So the volume transferred or the volume bunkered is 800,000 cubic meter without counting the LNG used by the LNG ships. So in the international scheme, we have regulations that govern this marine pollution by ships. So IMO, the International Maritime Organization, has a convention called MARPOL, Marine Pollution Convention, which regulates the pollution from ships, pollution from sewage, garbage, oily water, and emission from diesel oil or marine fuel used by ships. So the MARPOL Convention limits the emission of sulfur oxide, nitrogen oxide, particulate matter, and even has strategy to push the reduction of CO2 and green gas house. This is for the international. And we have regulation which is regional. For example, for the European ports, they have stronger and stringent regulations regarding the sulfur emission, greenhouse gases, and even now we have this emission trading system for ships calling European port and sailing from European port, and we have the alternative fuel infrastructure regulations as well. So we go briefly through these key emissions. As I said, we have the sulfur oxide is the all gases formed when the marine fuel or when the sulfur is burned in marine fuel. And it causes acid rains, human respiratory problems, and contributes in environmental acidification. The second one is the nitrogen oxide, same. It's a group of gases formed from nitrogen during combustion at high temperature. And of course, it leads to acid rains and ozone formation and respiratory issues as well. The third one is the particulate matter. It's the tiny solid particles that are generated from incomplete combustion from the heavy fuel oil, and it causes major human health concern. And of course, the carbon dioxide, the main greenhouse gas from fossil fuel combustion, from marine diesel oil, from fuel oil, and even from LNG, which contributes to global warming and climate change. The map you see here is, let me explain briefly about the emission control area. The blue color areas are emission control area, which has stringent regulation about the emission from ships. Let's say if I'm sailing around the world, I have regulation for sulfur content in the marine fuel. If you are entering to this area, let's say US coast or Canadian coast, you need to change over to another fuel which has lower sulfur content. And this is how the IMO has been pushing to reduce the sulfur content in this marine fuel. Before 2012, the sulfur content globally, the ships were using 4.5%, whereas in the emission control area, whenever you are entering this area, they have been using 1.5% content of sulfur. Fast forward, after 2020, IMO pushed to reduce the sulfur content to 0.5 globally, whereas in the emission control area, let's say if you are entering the Mediterranean Sea, you need to change over to fuel oil with sulfur content less than 0.1. And you can see the European ports are the early adopters. Since 2010, they have adopted regulation to reduce the sulfur content in the marine fuel. And the LNG is, since the beginning, was complying with this regulation because there is no sulfur content in this in the LNG. So here the comparison between the ULSFO. ULSFO is the ultra-low sulfur fuel oil used in the emission control area with sulfur content less than 0.1, and we have the LNG. So for the sulfur oxide, even the ULSFO is meeting the IMO regulation. The LNG, zero SOx emission. For the nitrogen oxide, let me just come from here so you can see. So for the nitrogen oxide, the ULSFO still generates significant NOx, whereas the LNG is up to 85 to 90% lower NOx emission. For the particulate matter, considerably higher than the LNG negligible particulate emissions. For the carbon dioxide, even the, if I can say, the greener marine fuel compared to the heavy fuel oil or very low sulfur fuel oil, there is no CO2 reduction, and LNG still is cleaner than the other fuel oils with 20 to 25% reduction in the CO2. Here in this map has the figures for August 2025. You can see the major hubs of LNG bunkering. If we take the 4 hubs where the LNG, most of LNG was bunkered, we have Rotterdam, Gibraltar, Singapore, and the Action. These 4 ports are connecting one route for container ships. So the container ships, they load from Asia, let's say in Yangshan, and discharge their cargo in Europe, stopping in Singapore and Gibraltar or Algeciras. These container ships are 350 meters, 400 meters. Big ships, they require large amount of fuel oil, which means large amount of LNG. This is why we see that these hubs have the major of LNG bunkering operations. You can see clearly that in the green color that the container ships, they have been adopting they adopted early the LNG as fuel, and they have the most of LNG bunkered on container ships. You can see here, this is 350 meters container ship. You can see the LNG fuel tank in the yellow color, how large this LNG tank compared to the ship. These tanks, they can hold 15,000 to 20,000 cubic meter of LNG. Large ships require large LNG as fuel. Of course, as I said, large ships require large LNG as fuel, and this quantity needs large LNG bunker barges, and we can see that we are requiring larger LNG bunker barges, 14,000 cubic meters, and up to 20,000 cubic meters, and you can see the trend is increasing. In January 2023, not all the bunker barges have been used totally. Fast forward August 2025, all the bunker barges have been fully utilized. When I say average utilization is 4 operations in a single month. Each bunker barge have been used more than 4 times, or they carried out operations 4 times in a single month for the full fleet of LNG bunker barge. Here, a brief illustration to show you how the LNG is used as bunker. So the LNG is taken from the tank, it's evaporated, compressed, and sent to the engine room or to the engine at 300, 200 bar, and the boil of gas is taken as well, heated, and used as fuel for the dual fuel generators and for boiler to produce steam. We'll talk briefly about the 3 LNG modes or 3 LNG bunkering modes. We have the truck to ship LNG bunkering. So you bring the ship alongside and you bring the LNG trucks and you supply LNG to this ship. But of course, it has advantages and limitations. So it's flexible and mobile, lower initial investment, but it has limited transfer rate, 50 to 100 cubic meter per hour, and requires multiple tracks for larger bunkering volumes. The most used one is the bunker barge to LNG fuel ship. And as well, it has advanced higher transfer rates and can serve large vessels and is very flexible. So the bunker barge can go alongside whenever the ship is loading or discharging and do the bunkering, or whenever the ship is waiting at anchor, the bunker barge can go alongside and supply LNG to this dual fuel ship. But it requires investment and a dedicated LNG bunker barge, and now all the shipyards are fully booked. So if you order LNG bunker barge, it takes time for the ship to be delivered. The third one is the terminal to ship bunkering operation. So you bring the ship to the export terminal or import terminal with a dedicated GT for LNG bunkering. It has very high transfer capacity, is economical for ports already importing or exporting LNG. But it's fixed location and high capex, and you need to bring the ship alongside only for LNG bunkering. It requires pilotage, tags, and it has extra fees to receive the bunker alongside. Here, the source of LNG for this LNG bunkering operation. You can see clearly that in red color that the source of LNG is from import terminals, not from export terminals. So these import terminals that are bringing LNG with LNG ships, They receive it, discharge in their tanks, and reload it again on bunker barges or on dual fuel ships. The second source is export terminal, and third one is STS operation. When I say STS operation, is the bunker barge go alongside a mothership, LNG ship, take the cargo and discharge it or bunker the LNG dual fuel ship. The picture in the left side, so I took it by myself. We lifted the cargo from an import terminal and we went at anchor, and this bunker barge was coming to us, lift the cargo at time 8,000 cubic meter, 10,000 cubic meter, and go to load the LNG dual fuel ships. This is the LNG bunker volume by continent. So we've seen that the most or the top four hubs where the LNG bunkering is happening around the world is in Europe and Asia, and you can see clearly that the amount is increasing in these two continents. For the suppliers, the top supplier for LNG bunkering worldwide, we have Shell as the top supplier in different ports, different continents. We have Fuel LNG in Singapore, Total Energies, SIPG in China, and the fourth supplier, Seaside LNG in the United States. For the receiver, of course, as I said, the top receivers are all container ships companies. CMA-CGM, container ship company. MSC, containers ship company. Seaspan as well, Hapag-Lloyd as well. The top four are all container ships companies. So you can see that most of the LNG bunkered was, the quantities were bunkered in container ships. And the fifth one is Carnival Corp. It is cruise shipping company. Here in the Americas, the top four or top three LNG bunkering hubs, we have the Garden City Terminal, Georgia in the United States, Port of Canaveral as well in the United States, and third one, Kingston in Jamaica. The LNG bunkering volume in the Americas, as you can see, the United States is leading the countries with the most of bunkering operation throughout the years. And you can see in blue color, yes, LNG bunkering in Canada now with Seaspan. They start LNG bunkering in Vancouver, British Columbia. And in Americas as well, the container ships are leading the ships type for ships bunkering LNG, followed by the cruise ships as well. And for the suppliers in the Americas as well, Shell is leading the top suppliers, followed by Seaside LNG and the other suppliers. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias al señor Zehhaf por su participación en nuestro evento el día de hoy. Gracias por acompañarnos. Nuestros invitados todos han recibido un delicioso pisco peruano. El señor Zehhaf está recibiendo unos chocolates deliciosos.